Because the first time I saw you compete live was in your main event against Paul Felder. And that's when I got the chance to go hang out with you boys and train at CKB,
I remember
man.
you coming over.
And even back then, you had that, like, I don't know, how do you say it? Like that veteran, like you just had that like experience, you know, from, that's what I was going to ask you, from the UFC. So you know how like your first 5 fights, you said it's real crazy, and then you kind of learn how to slow the game down and see things?
Yeah.
Is that how it is when you go to the UFC and you start from the beginning, and then you like, the first UFC fights get real crazy, and then you start to slow it down, and like, is it like another level?
Oh, that's like that's the game, right? Like you're in like your local circuit, and oh man, okay, all right, I've got control of this one, and then you just go more lights, and then it's like more pressure, and then you get I'm at the point now where I need like more, you know what I mean? Like when we went back, and like the pandemic hit, and the Poirier fight was in the Apex, and I remember walking out and counting, and I counted 15 people. I was like, man, there's 15. I was like, this is shit. I didn't feel like any nerves. I didn't get any adrenaline. And then, like post-pandemic, you get it back and you walk out, and it's like a full arena, and you feel the energy and you feel the noise, like Madison Square Garden. You walk out and you're just like, yeah. Like I was just like, this is it. I was like, this is the buzz. Better than any drug in the world. When you get out there, you're just like shot of adrenaline straight to the veins. You're like, I'm alive now. It's like after the Puyo or Joe, like before, I was just like, it just felt like showing up to the gym for like a sparring session. I was like, oh man, there's cameras and shit there, but I don't think about like, oh man, there's people watching behind those cameras. It's like, there's nothing compared to 20,000 people like being there and giving you their energy. Like you can't transfer the energy like through a camera, or it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Do you think it's harder to so what do you reckon? You think it's harder, like with the no crowd? I fought like that in the coronavirus one time. We fought in the arena, and like, yeah, we fought in the Singapore indoor arena, and it was super empty, and like I felt the same thing. It was like weird, right? Like you're like, yo, am I about to fight right now?
Yeah.
But there's something, so that energy, you feel it when you're in the ring, when you're in the cage.
Or you can use it, like you use the energy, you use those the fans screaming and doing all that carry on. Like that's truly the. It's like the old analogy. It's like there's like you're walking along a plank of wood, you know what I mean? And you lie it on the floor. Well, that's easy, you know what I mean? Well, you go up 10 meters. Now you walk along that same plank of wood, and you're thinking, oh man, if I fall, I might fucking break my leg. Then it goes to 100 meters, and you're like, you walk along that plank, and you're like, if I fall off this, I'm gonna fucking die. Like it's like the task is the same, but like the pressure gets added, like the difficulty of the pressure, like there's more at stake, there's more on the line, but it's like you can't go backwards. It doesn't work like that. Like you need, once you've felt that level of pressure, you can't go, you don't, I never asked, or I never prayed for like an easier road. That's not something I've ever asked for. I've never been like, man, I wish they would have given me easier opponents. I never crossed my mind. It's like, I wish I had like the skill to deal with those. Like that's what you truly can control.
That's heavy. That's heavy, because we know a lot of guys that a lot of people want the easiest route to victory, right? They want like, all right, let's get an opponent that has you know how it is. You know how the game is, right? Like, but I think that's like a different mentality. I don't know if it's a Kiwi thing or a CKB thing, but that's what I feel like all you guys are always looking for, like the hardest challenge out there. Like, oh, this guy is this. All right, let's see what he's got. Let's get it.
Like, oh, yeah, you'll hear like older fighters, guys that have been doing it their lives, like, oh man, I wish, I would have fought this guy instead of fighting this guy. And it's like, no, like at that time, I wish I had the experience I have now, and I would have beaten him. It's like, go back, like I've got so much experience because I've got so many losses on my record. Like there's a lot of learning there, and that's like the true like crux of our sport, is because when you go out there and you go under the ropes or you step in the cage, like you have to, for that 15 minutes, for that 25 minutes, you have to believe that you have to truly believe that you're unbeatable. You have to truly believe, like mentally, that you're undefeated. You know what I mean? But it obviously gets like progressively more difficult when you know you're not. when you've been knocked out, when you've been exhausted, when you've been choked unconscious, and then still being able to walk out there and believing that you're invincible, like that's the part that gets a lot of people, where they're just like, you'll see it so many times where a guy's like undefeated, 10-0, 20-0, you know what I mean? And then he loses. And then he's just like, that's crash. Because obviously if you're undefeated, if I'm 20-0, I am unbeatable, because I have no evidence in my brain to convince me that I'm not. So it's like, and as soon as he does become invincible, that's like the difficulty in our sport, is convincing yourself that you're bulletproof when you've been shot a bunch of times.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. Yeah, that's like the delusion of being a fighter that you almost need.
There's an aspect. There's an aspect of delusion. There has to be, because you are convincing yourself you're bulletproof when you got a leg missing because it got shot off. Like, people look at you and they go, "You're crazy." Like,
your record says otherwise.
Yeah, evidence contradicts your statement.